Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our fifth instalment of Two Geezers, One Care Plan with me, Mark Turton.
Me, Damon Habin.
Okay, for those who are new to this, ultimately me and Damon just talk about everything around social care. We tend to keep it very straightforward. We ask each other one question each, and then we'll take in turns to explore that question with some ideology, some methodology, but also some background as well. And then what we try to do, if we've got enough time, which we always tend to at the end, we then give you a top tip, either from a leadership perspective or a management perspective or just general life perspective. I think that's about right, isn't it, David?
Yep, certainly is.
Okay, so in light of the World Cup concluding late last night, for those who stayed up, it was a very late one. It was about 11:30, I think, UK time when it finished. Both the types of questions both me and Damon have chosen has got a sports themed in a way to it, but in reality, if you put them into practice, especially in supporting management outcomes and leading teams, it's very much status quo, straight down the middle. So at the World Cup, we had 40 plus different managers, all with different styles, and those styles were very much played out, especially close to home in England. Very much in the papers and about choices and about decision making and all that. So my question to you, Damon, is what makes a good manager?
Great question. So I think going for the obvious cliched, leads by example. Managers within another walk of life, so social care, can't be the same as football managers, because if you get a defender that becomes a football manager, they then tend to be quite defensive, which doesn't always help. They've got to be more open-minded and look at all options rather than what they're used to, what they're good at. And I think as well, so it's looking at that manager's strengths and playing those strengths, but also looking at their weaknesses and seeing how they can develop their weakness into a strength. I think that good managers give feedback, both positive and constructive, and they give that fairly and with empathy. I think they give direction, and I think two last little bits from me. I think that they know when to step back and let the team get on with it, and they know when to step up and support the team. And the last one, encourage development. It's important to, because sometimes managers, they get a great team and they don't want to lose that team, and they almost stifle people to keep them within the team, because I know that if they develop them, they'll potentially get promoted, and then they'll lose them and they'll lose a key part of their team. And I always think of it that if I'd be more than proud, when I worked for a provider and that was more of a trainer, but if I could see support staff come in and then 2 years later leave to start becoming a nurse, you think, well, that, yes, it's a great support worker that we've lost, but what an amazing company we're working for if we can encourage and support those support staff to become nurses, which are not necessarily better, but a different role, and it's just their development on their journey.
Yeah, because ultimately we've got three management styles: the authoritarian style, you've got the democratic style, and the laissez-faire style.
Yeah.
So is actually looking at those styles, is it important you have a playbook? In the sense that you've got to understand when to use your playbook at times. From my experience, and is that I've seen a lot of registered managers who hasn't got a playbook, but what they do think they have, they think they're a good manager, and these are managers who will sell themselves is that they go from job to job, and it's a horrible term, but they bounce in and out of jobs. And they sign up saying, I can change your CQC rating. Yeah. My argument is that if you can't sustain a long term of a CQC rating, as a manager, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Because not all that's your fault. I'm fully aware it could be down to other factors. But part of that is around workforce and stability around workforce. It's how do you put your ideology into your workforce to make sure they understand, to the view that when you're not at work, you're quite comfortable to turn your phone off, knowing that whoever's working on that shift is actually following your ideology. He's following your principles of care. It means that those residents or those clients who you are paid to look after are being looked after to their maximum. So, management styles. So let's just delve into that a little bit, because it's part of what makes a good manager, I think. So in your experience, I have a worry that there's a small group of sale affair managers who get by, who are very silo driven, isolated, and don't like engaging. And the reason why I think they don't like engaging is because they know the sale affair managers. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Do you think that one of the issues, and it's not just within social care, I've seen it in all my walks of life, where you'll get somebody who's particularly good at the job that they do, and then a vacancy becomes available, and they might be interviewed for it, but chances are they're pretty much going to get it, because whoever's promoting them has seen that sort of internal ability. But then when they get to the role, there is no support, there's no training. And, I've learned through life experiences, just because you're good at something doesn't mean that you're going to be naturally good at them managing that something, and how we deal with people, and recognizing that, if, like you say there, if we are being siloed, if we're not reaching out, we might not know that we're doing that or not doing that, and be unaware of going back to what I sort of said, we all kind of know our strengths, but I think we do know our weaknesses, but it's whether or not we want to acknowledge our weaknesses, or even see them as a weakness. As you mentioned, there's some people.
It's interesting that, because I've been in my experience, I've seen all three types of managers. I've seen the autocratic manager, and I go back to the stereotypical matron type person in an NHS hospital. Back in the probably the late 1980s, where every hospital corner had to be at 45 degrees. It was literally a stealth rule by the ward sister, and the ward sister was very stern looking, and she was the one who shouted. And autocratic wise, as a student nurse, you were petrified of that individual. Now, question is, was that good management or not? It was more, in my viewpoint, it's more army style management. The barrack room to the sergeant major type processes. Did I learn anything? Yes, I did learn. I learned that you've got to listen. And I learned you've got to make sure you do your job well. Because if you do your job well, the same individual is very good at passing on information to say, well done. Then I've seen the democratic manager. My view about democratic managers, they're very good, but actually when it comes to decision making, it gets lost, because they will ask everyone, what should we do? We've got this A, B, or C. Which one are we going to go for? We could go for A, and then we waste time talking about A, B, and C. And no respect to some of our colleagues who work in health, where we do like a good meeting for a meeting, because we can't make a decision, because we're being democratic and co-produced. And at that stage, someone in leadership has to be autocratic to say, okay, A, B, and C, we're going with B. And the reason we're going for B is because you've told me this, this, and this. Here's the risk, and the risk is actually manageable. And then I've also come across those people who totally sell affair, who literally will say, right then, I'm just nipping out to get my hair cut. I'll be back at 4:30, and they actually go missing. So when the decisions need to be made, actually not on premises, or they may be on premises, but actually they're not prioritizing that response. So going to my question to you is, looking at you, where do you feel most comfortably at? which two do you like flipping through? Because I think you've got to have two. This is my ideology. You've got to be good at least two of them.
You really put me on the spot there. It's a good job I can edit them and cut out the pauses. I think.
So I see for you, you're very democratic.
Yeah.
You're very much wanting information, and you like information.
Yeah.
But then when you get that information, you seek advice. When you seek advice, you work with that senior manager to ensure actually in your own mind you're making the right decision. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think that's healthy. Because if you were the latter, if you were democratic still affair, you would listen and just say, okay, you decide. I'm not making a decision. You could decide. As a manager, I'm letting you decide. You could take the responsibility. So if it goes left field, it's your responsibility.
Yeah. And I think there's a bit of the autocratic in there as well. That was the one that I got down for myself. But I think there is a bit of the autocratic in there, and then the least is the laissez-faire.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I
think with managing, the hardest part is when to release delegation.
Yeah. And you are right. It is because but then why have a team if you're going to do it all yourself? Why have a team? That is what you've got a team for, and you've got to let go sometimes. And sometimes you've got to do the things that you've got to let the stuff that you want to do go, and then crack on with the stuff that you necessarily don't want to do.
That's a great point. That's great, because I see a lot of times when people delegate, but they don't delegate properly, if you see what I mean.
Yep.
So there's a philosophy about delegation. You don't delegate something which you can't do yourself.
Yeah.
And then you've got what I call the pirate syndrome. Is literally you delegate, but you're on that person's shoulder like a parrot, and a pirate's parrot checking what they're doing, and you waste all your time checking what they're doing. So two of you doing the same checking, and nothing gets done because you're checking, because you can't release the delegation and trust.
But you can always have sort of continuous development in there where if you set a task, so you've got the plan, the do, the check, and the act, and you keep going in circles. And I know sort of with the team that I have now, it's been painful sometimes, and that's my own fault, because you'll sort of manage somebody and you'll ask them to go and do something, and they'll go and do it, and you'll think, no, that's not what I've asked for. And then you look at what you've actually asked them to do and think, well, actually, no, they've gone and done what I've asked them to do.
Yeah, it's your rule book, isn't it? Going back to your rule book, not your rule book, like an instruction book. I think both of us, we are very similar to this. In our heads, we know exactly what the instructions are. And in our heads, we know how it's said. But what we sometimes find is the people on the other end, what is said has different meanings to what needs to be done. And I think I sit in that part, is that I sit in that part of the fact that sometimes I have to go back to the well 2 or 3 times just to make sure that the team or the individuals in the team fully understand what the expectation is, but more importantly, what the objective is. Because I'm the one who's leading the aim, they're the ones doing the objective. So if they don't know what the objective finally is, they're never going to hit the mark.
They're not. And it's not taking it personally either, or as an older person now, I don't get frustrated. And I look more to myself, because nobody goes out of their way to do something bad or annoying or not the way you want it done. They go out of their way to do it in the best possible way, but you've got to get those aligned. So where do you see yourself then? Which sort of management styles do you come under?
I think I've morphed. I think when I very first started on my career, I was very comfortable in laissez-faire into democratic, because I was immature as a leader and a manager. I was learning. I'm a very visual, so I learn more by observation and
Yes.
absorbing information that way, and
Yeah.
then logically put it into the process to make it better. And then you talk about, you go on all these management courses, and you're dying to become democratic leaders, and this is the important. You need to talk to your team.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you've got to be autocratic. And with autocratic it's interesting. I've had a conversation today with someone. It's about having the spine in your back to stand up and say, I'm making this decision. If it goes left field, it's on my shoulders, but I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah.
So I think I sit in democratic. I'll say I am 55% democratic, 40% autocratic, and 5% less fair, because I do like procrastinating. I do get a thrill out of procrastinating, which is that's my personality, I think. What about you?
Very, very similar, I think. I think I'm definitely sort of democratic at the top, autocratic at second, and then depending on the day of the week, laissez-faire at the bottom. And sometimes, like you sort of say, if you're having a bad time or things aren't going right, and you sort of, or you don't know which project to do, then that laissez-faire can start to sort of creep up a little bit more. But I'm getting better at that because I've got passions now that I like to focus on, but I've also got a day job. And sometimes it's like, well, before I sort of edit that video or do this, report, it's like I've got to go and do that. I've got to do my day job first, and then I can do that almost as a treat to inspire me. And then I think that then sort of works its way down to how we manage people. It's like, well, that's what I would like. That's how I'd like it done. But listening as well.
I'm just thinking it's interesting today, of all days, where we're going to have a new prime minister.
Yeah.
I look at Keir Starmer, and I think public perception of it, he's an autocratic manager. The public believe he can't make a decision. In reality, he's probably more democratic, and that's why he can't make a decision, because being democratic, he wants to do what's best for everyone and not make big decisions. And I think that is probably his failure. But in public perception, they see him as a weak leader because it comes across the element. Now, in reality, let's bring that back to social care. In social care fields, is that what we do know is that we have a regulator.
Yep.
And what we do know in that regulation is that we've got part of the clause which is about well led.
Yep.
And what we also know is actually that one of the major failings providers have is around governance. It's around the elements of management and support of systems. And that in itself leads to that element of management styles. So we potentially have managers who don't manage because either their owners manage on their behalf, or actually they themselves are not strong enough to do that job. And that might be immaturity in the sense that they've just moved up from a deputy role, or it's their first role, and actually they have no managerial experience, but they're expected to run a multi-pound business. And they are businesses. We've got to remember, these are businesses, aren't they?
Yeah, not charities. It reminds me of one of your top tips about the spinning plates, and it's very hard sometimes, isn't it? As a manager, if you've just had a CQC inspection and it's not gone the way you wanted it to, then it's like, right, let's focus on that. And it's like, you've still got your day job, you've still got everything else, but then chuck in, some sickness with support staff, shifts go down, all of your focus is on that, and or maybe they've got empty beds and they're trying to fill the beds, or maybe they've got a domiciliary round that's too big and they're trying to, but not big enough to split into 2 rounds, and they've got so many plates to spin, and it's not just about managing people or supporting the residents or the families, it's the business side of it as well. And yeah, it's not an easy task, that's for definite.
100%. Right, I think that's my question wrapped up.
Brilliant. Well, my question to you, Mark, so what makes a good team player and why?
Oh God, I think a good team player is someone who is able to morph into different processes and styles. Someone who is able to absorb knowledge. Someone who understands the difference between right or wrong, or quality and poor.
Yeah.
Someone who is able to open their mouth, but in a way that people will listen, and a light bulb will go on in other people's heads.
Yeah.
Not someone who is, I've got the t-shirt, I've got the video, I know what I'm doing, blah, blah, blah. So they're not a leader in that, as in the team. I also think everyone, like use a bell bin, is that you've got to have different components from different individuals in a good team. I can go remember back from my experience working as a nurse, as a charge nurse on a ward. I had a member of staff who predominantly for, say, 3/4 of the year underperformed. Sorry, for a quarter of the year underperformed, but 3/4 of the year actually exceeded expectations. Yep. And so that element of it, I had to then look at when that individual wasn't performing. I had to make sure that other people was overperforming to match that person's lack of production, you see what I mean? I think in social care, it's interesting because in social care, one of the biggest asks I sometimes is, can we have some work on team, how team works and team integrations? And one argued that one of the greatest things you simply do a social. Go out, enjoy yourselves, let your hair down. Yeah. As a manager, just take a back seat and just watch. You'll see the microdynamics of a team either come together or identify the ones who you have to work with to either calm them down or maybe work with people to say, right, they've got potential there, let's just bring them up. I think it's difficult. I think actually manage and that process of what's around the teams itself, I think is extremely difficult. And as a workforce challenge, I think it for most individuals, it should be a number one priority. I always remember back in the day, someone asked me, can we have some training on how to do the things which I want them to do at the time I want them to do it? Fantastic title. And I just turned around and said, if I could do that, I think I'd be a millionaire.
Yeah.
Because actually, it's impossible. But if you don't process and allow individuals to be who they are and have their personality, that's great. You're always going to have, I think you're always going to have some kind of conflict in your teams. As a leader, it's important to see that early.
Yeah.
But don't panic. Don't say, right, I need to get rid of that person. That person's too outspoken. No, they might be good at spoken because actually they may be good at leading, or they may be good at being a key worker to influence other people, but they don't want the leadership element. But what they'll do is over a cup of coffee say, we really should be doing this. Yeah. And if you feed them the right narrative, they do, as a leader, they do a lot of your work for you.
Yeah.
What about yourself? What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with all that. I think that a good team player respects everybody within the team. They've got a balance of listening, but also doing. And I think you can always see a leader within a team. They tend to sort of stand out, but it's giving everybody that chance. I look back at myself and look at my children, and a couple of them are very intelligent, but also very self-conscious of if I put my hand up and get it wrong, then everybody's going to laugh at me. And it's like, well, actually, you're not going to get it wrong most of the time, and nobody's going to laugh at you.
What were you like at school? Sorry, what was you like at school? Because that's a great example. Is that, were you the one who used to stick your hand up, or were you the one who used to hide?
hide, so quiet, hated it. But I knew 90% of the time, I knew the answer. But then, when you have to have like those team building exercises and the bits at school, and you'd always get the really confident, knew what they were doing, but didn't have a clue. And I'd sit back and I'd sit back and I'd sit back, and then I'd shock everybody by going, right, what we really need to do is this. And I think people then would be like, thank God somebody's spoken up. But you get if somebody is, and I've tried to instill this again with children more than, let's say, work colleagues, that I got it from being a trainer. People go, I wish I could do what you do. And it's like, what do you mean? It's like, well, you're just knowledgeable. It's like, well, no, it's on a slide behind me. I haven't done hands-on care work for a long time. Yeah, but you can stand up, you can capture a room, an audience. It's like, well, you're talking to me right now and you've captured my, you can do it. Oh, I can't. It's like, well, that's the only difference. One of us believes they can stand up and potentially make a fool of themselves. The other one's too frightened to. But then that confidence is a danger, because if you truly believe that the sky is pink, sadly, some people will believe you that the sky is pink. And you've got to be very, very careful that you don't, directly or indirectly.
I think it's a good point. I go back to two things in my life. Is that at school I was very timid in classroom, but when it came to sports, I was a leader.
Yeah.
In later life, I thought I was a good leader and a good manager, and then I read Steve Peters' The Chimp's Paradox. And folks, if you ever read it, there's a health warning with this book, because it fried my head.
Mm-hmm.
Because everything Steve Peters was talking about, I could actually compartmentalize it in my own head, what was happening. So ultimately is that Steve Peters talks about we have a subconscious and a conscious, and a subconscious is the chimp. And if we don't control our subconscious, it gets too powerful and it influences our conscience. And if it influences our conscience too much, it makes us and takes us to areas which we can make really poor decisions. And it's a case of allowing the chimp being freedom, a bit about being naughty. It's about having too much access of things. And if you allow that to happen without control, you literally, it's welcome to the asylum, and you let the lunatics out, in the sense, in the paradox of that. When I looked at that, I'm thinking, everything he's talking about, I could relate to. And the more I read it, the more depressed I got. Mm-hmm. To the fact is that I questioned my own mindset, in the sense that actually it made me psychologically depressed, because ultimately it stopped me being free and open, thinking, right, I know my decision, I'm free to make my decision as a team leader, and I'm going to stick to my. It actually questioned the element. Now, fast forward probably 15 years since I read it, I fully understand how I needed to control my chimp, because ultimately my chimp was out of its box. Mm-hmm. And he was having a massive party with hats and streamers and literally fireworks. And that in itself, if I look at that now, I'm thinking, if I know that was happening, those who worked with me in the teams I was working with, I must have been a pain in the arse, without being horrible. I was out of control. It was my word or no words.
Yeah.
And in a way, going back to, we talk about management, I can understand why management had concerns. Fast forward, and I think that comes down to mentorship, and it comes down to changes of environment, and it changes circumstances. I look at today, I believe I am a better leader and a better manager than probably I am, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
There's the argument is that, what's the difference between leadership and management? And the argument is that there's a great scenario or great truth around Apollo 13, is that when Apollo 13 was running out of oxygen, and they had no power to the module, the lunar module, and the LEM, and they had to do a slingshot around the moon. All the management was saying that we can't bring these guys back. And the task by mission control is we've got to find a way. We can't leave 3 astronauts in space to die. And what happened is that each component of that Apollo mission went back to their teams, and the teams itself solved the problems. They brought the problems back, and it identifies how management got something as big as Apollo so wrong. So we had 2 spaceships, and apart from the docking station itself, none of the components fitted in either spaceship. So you famously got a carbon dioxide filter, which is round, on one module, and on the other one, it's oblong. And they had to literally invent a oblong connector to the round connector, so it filtered to survive. And the interesting thing with this is that when they debriefed anyone, I think the story goes that NASA decided, right then, our next one is going to be the space shuttle. The management for the space shuttle came from all those leaders, not from the managers. The managers, I think it's that time you retired. You've done your bit with Apollo. We want new blood. We want leaders come, and the leaders came in because the brain came in with all these fast ideas of proof. And I think there's some of the great truths in that, especially around when we look at social care, where we talk about management and leadership a lot. I think we have a lot of good leaders who think they're managing, but all they're doing is leading. Do you see that yourself when your role?
Yeah.
And that's no negative. That's not a negative at all. That's just an observation.
Yeah. I think it goes back to when you're supporting somebody. Are you teaching and training them, or are you coaching them? A lot of people don't understand coaching, do they? They think, well, I'm very good at what I do, and I'm showing them what I do. And it's like, yes, you're showing them, you're teaching them, you're not coaching them. I think it goes back to a good manager. A good manager sometimes is a good coach, because they do the I do, then they do the we do, and then they let the person actually do the you do. And rather than trying to keep doing the I do and the kind of we do, but it's really the I do, and I'm keeping control of everything. It is letting people go. And I think that comes with what you were sort of saying there. And I think one of the things that always comes to mind is we don't know what we don't know. And at the time, using your sort of the lunar modules, you've got 2 teams, haven't you? One doing this side and one doing that side. And what they don't know, and they never. Well, it's like my passion around cybersecurity. People think, well, yeah, we kind of got cybersecurity, but it doesn't matter because we'll never get cyber attacked. No, it doesn't matter until you are cyber attacked, and then it really, really does matter. Admittedly, probably not life threatening when you're, circling the Earth, trying to figure out how you're going to be able to breathe in the next hour. But it's that thing, isn't it, that if Team A is building something round and Team B is building something rectangle, doesn't matter until it doesn't matter. But when it does matter, boom.
Well, it's right in the latest NASA, which went and orbited the moon. The toilet failed. So for how many days? 10 days they did it. They had to find a way to get rid of the number 2s.
Yeah.
Which resulted in apparently just storing it. And it smelled horrendous.
Yeah.
But that was the only solution. But what they had to do, because it was a weight thing, they had to offset bits and pieces and get rid of other things like certain gases, which towards the end, they didn't need anyway as part of the living process, because they knew that if not, they were going to potentially be too heavy when they entered the Earth atmosphere because they'd scoops of poops. But again, it comes down to, who leadership. These things are there. So management will do the processes. This is where we're going. This is the aim. The objective is this. But the team itself are the ones who have to do the metrics of that objective.
Yeah. And we'd all love to think that it's every single thing that we do is going to go plain sailing, be 110%, and it'll be amazing. And the reality is something will rear its ugly head, and we'll have to deal with it when it does.
All right, so I'm going to do a curveball for you.
Yeah, got him.
So we've just had the World Cup, and we said this is the World Cup edition.
Yeah.
In the sense, so why did Spain win the World Cup as a team?
Because I think it's a number of things. I mean, the obvious answer is they were better than everybody else, and the stats show that. But I think
nothing wrong with that's a good point. No. That's a good point.
Yeah, stats. You can't lie with stats. I love an Excel spreadsheet.
So that's your outstanding rating.
Yeah.
So they're an outstanding provider, and they've proved they're an outstanding provider. Their team has proven they're an outstanding provider.
But a lot of that team has come up through the ranks from the under-19s to the under-21s. They're not just playing with each other for a few games. They've almost grown up with each other, which I think is
that's your workforce development. So they've developed the style of what they did through hard work for learning and developing. And therefore, you've got to have skills. And you've got, in these cases, there were exceptionally good skills, but they've developed and they've maintained a pathway.
Yeah. And I think that the last thing is they've got a manager that's managed the team rather than a player that's managed the squad. They've got, because I think this World Cup has shown, I mean, you can't take anything away from Lionel Messi. He is probably the greatest player of all time. But I don't think he had the swan song that he thought. Well, I think when Argentina played Egypt, those tears at the end were genuine tears, because I think he thought his story was coming to an end then, not 2 games later. But I think a stronger manager might have sort of said, I'm not being funny, Lionel, because I know him that well. We can go to first name terms. I'm gonna sit you on the bench to begin with. Yes, I will. Going to sit you on the bench, because there are just certain players that you potentially can't bench. But as an outsider, I know that the team that I follow have had some really good players that have come in to sit on that bench and to come off and make a difference, and they've been happy doing that. I should think the large salary sort of made it all the little bit sweeter, but not every player, as they come to their twilight, is happy to do that. But again, that's part of being a team player. Sometimes we can't always be the star of the show.
That's an interesting point, because ultimately, you look at social care as being a low-paid industry.
Yep.
So one would argue is that everyone who works in social care earns their salary. The more money you're offered, therefore you're more open to assess the equation is, are you earning your salary by the production and the way you deliver on other things? And of course, in all our cases, it is the manager who is probably on the highest salary.
Yeah.
And it is therefore failure. One would argue it could be deemed as failure of the manager to fulfill the salary expectation. I think there's 2 factors. One, the failure could be down to poor leadership, or it could be due to factors within the team, which has led to a breakdown in relationships, i.e. that the team don't know what the objective is. They may have the skills, but they can't put it into practice because they don't understand what it is. And it goes back to what we said earlier about what style of management have you got? Is it autocratic? Is it still a fair, or is it democratic? And the risk of that, if you stick too much in one of those areas, you run the risks.
Yeah. Well, it's the same with the team, isn't it? You'd think if we had 11 Lionel Messis, would win every cup and trophy going. No, I don't think you'd win one.
Well, see, I believe in Moneyball now. So those people who don't know what Moneyball is dealing with all stats. It's like your best team is the person who is always on time, the person who actually has no sickness, the person who is willing to put their name down to do some training, and when they do the training, they put it into practice. The member of staff who attends supervision, but actually is getting more out of supervision because they want to progress as a career in your organisation. All these elements are, and I suspect if you look at any team, you've probably got a good proportion of your team heading in that direction. But you'll always have one who isn't. And this goes back to what I spoke earlier about a member of staff who for a quarter of the year was literally not unproductive. It's how, I think, as individuals, as leaders, as managers as well, how we actually see that and do something about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Right then. I am conscious of time.
Yep.
So your top tip today, Damon, please.
Yeah, top tip. Not short one, play the simple pass. And by that, I mean that, sometimes we all want to be Lionel Messi. We want to take the ball through from the defense right the way through to the end, score a goal. But it rarely ever happens, and it just doesn't work out. And it's great when it does, but the majority of the time it doesn't work out. So play that simple pass, and by that I mean, you haven't got to do everything. Work as a team, have good communication, get trust within each other, and just do things to, keep possession, or in this case within social care, let's put that person. We all talk about person-centered care, so let's put that person at the center and think, right, what are we going to do to keep them there? And sometimes it's not the big showy things; it's the little things, the simple things that make all the difference. So that's my top tip. What about yours?
Mine is from the world of football. So this is from probably argumentary the greatest club football manager of all time, the wonderful Pep Guardiola. So Pep talks about perfection is impossible, but chasing it every day is what makes champions. And I do like that concept. Is that carrot?
Yeah.
There's our goal.
Yeah.
Let's chase it. Let's chase perfection, because we might never get there, but we'll have a good fun, trying our best.
Yeah.
So that's what I quite like that one. So I would like to finish on that one.
Brilliant.
So Damon, we need to tell people to like and subscribe on our YouTube account, please. If you do that, it'll be well. Any comments as well, if you put in the comments box. We do like questions, so if you've got a question you would like answering by both me and Damon, please feel free to put it in your comment spot. Again, if you like what you're hearing, please press like and subscribe to our channel. We are in the processes of doing some further work, so we're going to do some 2 geezers and 1 care plan sound bites, hopefully, which Damon's already started putting things together. As previously stated, on the 4th podcast, we said we were trying to get some guests. We are still trying to get this. There's a high probability on our next one, which is will be our 6th one. We will have our very first guest. We've just got to get a time, and I won't as yet tell you who it is. I've had a good chat with the individual. He's a personality, local personality in the local area. He's a carer, and he's seen social care from outside the window, inside, a bit like Giari's window. But I think he'll be really interested to talk to specifically around it. When I explained what we're trying to do, he was really enthusiastic. He wants to get involved, and I said, look. Please feel free to say yes. So I will drop in a message, and hopefully we'll get that said individual on to be our first one. We're still trying to get the wonderful Melanie Weatherly MBE to sign up. We nearly got her. Unfortunately, we had an internet connection, so and her busy diary. why we want Melanie is because Melanie is the co-chair of the CAA, which is the Care Association Alliance, the National Adult Social Care Care Association. And she sits on a lot of national work, especially around the Fair Pay Agreement and Workers' Rights Bill. But she's also doing specific pieces of work around getting young people into social care, and especially around the new potential T levels, which are currently being looked at, and consultations took place. Is taking place, sorry, around what those T levels for social care should specifically look like, and the importance of T levels. I know at our recent conference where we had, both me and Damon were there, one of the things I spoke about to people is that what's the biggest wish going forward, and I said T levels. We can get T levels for social care to get young people on a career specifically and see in practice what social care can offer. I'm sure we could have a major influence into our workforce and the workforce for the future. Okay, David, anything else from you? I'll let you wrap up.
No, I think you've said it all there, Mark. I'm excited myself about the T levels. That, you know, very interesting from the outside, sort of hearing about what's proposed and planned. Looking forward to seeing it implemented, really. And yeah, just to reiterate what you said, if people could like and subscribe, you know, and yeah, just get in contact. It'd be appreciated. But nothing else from me.
Thank you very much. And for those who's joined us on this fantastic journey, hope you've enjoyed this episode.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next time.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.